Okinitsuko. Gusto one note Mitsapi Chikasam Sheldon First Rider. Hello, my relatives. My English name is Sheldon First Rider. I am a residential school survivor. 1957, I was taken away from my granny, who raised me and placed in the St. Paul's Residential School just outside of Cardston, Alberta. And there I was taught that my language was Satan's language, and that we were Satan's children, and that our language was evil. And also, if any of the children were speaking Blackfoot, there was severe punishment and a lot of physical abuse, because many of the children that were there could not speak not even one word of English, not even yes or no. When I was in my middle 20s, I was diagnosed with cirrhosis and alcohol consumption. And so then I went home, and my granny said it's a life or death decision. Either you're going to keep drinking or you're going to die. So I ended up going into the mountains and being there for about a year by myself to get away from the alcohol and the drugs. And then I met a man after about 9 months when I was up there. And his name was Thomas Floyd Heavyweight. He's also known as Tiny Man. And he was the one that introduced me to the syllabic alphabet, but also introduced me to my way of life. So when I got here, I started doing the programs. We have quite a few programs now. When I got here, there was the Nitsitapisini program, what we teach to a lot of children, the introduction to the Blackfoot way of life. I also was doing TP Tales and Teachings for the kindergarten to grade 2s, reading the symbols that are in here in Glenbow. And then I was asked to do a presentation on Where Are the Children, and that was the experiences of the residential school survivors. And it was then that I realized just how traumatic my early life had been. And I was very, very, I guess you could say, hurt by it, but at the same time confused, because I really didn't put that kind of a value on my way of life. So then when I started doing the programs, I also started to learn more, because when you're growing up on the reservations, or you're influenced by all of the activities that we have, I started to really see just how beautiful our way of life was. And so when I started to do my research, I realized just how important everything that I was doing here was in a reflection of what my grandfather's stories, my great-grandfathers, my ancestors that have been here since time immemorial. So I wanted to bring in the language program. Actually, I kind of wanted to start it right away, but Glenbow does take a little time. It is a museum. Today, I look at how we have lost our language so quickly. And that is the main reason I started to focus on trying to deliver a language program with Glenbow. And Glenbow has been very supportive about everything that I have been doing here. And so I'm really, really thankful that they allowed me to start the program. And based on its success, now we are confident to be able to teach it, not just to the Blackfoot people, but to all of the newcomers who are in Blackfoot territory. So it's really becoming an important part of the school curriculum. And when I'm looking at that, I see the need to be able to help my own people, the Blackfoot people, understand how important language is to them, because that encompasses our history, our culture, and of course the language. Without the language, well, there is no culture. How do we uh, address history? And so my experience here at Glenbow has been short of amazing. It's been so beautiful to me. You know, when I'm looking at all of what has transpired in the last 7 years, and now my 8th year here, and how we're starting to be such a part of this community called Mohkinstsis or Calgary, and how they've embraced what we're trying to teach here. Because you have to understand that everything was outlawed. We could not teach about our teepees. We could not teach about our clothing. We could not even speak our language. It was all outlawed. And ironically, for 10 days out of the year, when the Calgary Stampede was put here, that was when it was legal to speak our language, put up our teepees, and wear our clothing. And so much is embedded in all of the artifacts that we show at Glenbow, all of the designs that we have here. This is just an introduction to a world that has been here, well, at least over 50,000 years. And when we start to see the children coming in, and they want to know. They want to know what is below them. They want to know this history. They want to know the names of why we call Mohkinstsis, why we call the Elbow and the Bow River the names that we do, why we call the mountains and the names and the stories that come with them. And when I talk about stories, I say to the children, the story that I'm telling you is 3 to 4 hours long. And within it is, so when I'm telling these stories, I shorten them into 5 minutes. And when they're in an English version, well, they become a myth, a legend, or a fairy tale. But if I was to do it the way my grandfather would do it, using the old Blackfoot language to tell the story, using pantomime or acting that goes with the story, using sign language, because that's how we communicated with deaf people, and also other First Nations. As I said before, we made contact with them before Europeans came in. They were our neighbors, and also we would also allow them free passage. If we liked them, of course, we would adopt them. We'd also make treaties with them so that they can stay in our territory without being challenged. And so these are the things that I'm starting to realize that we have a lot more to offer. And just from the teepees itself that Glenbow has to be able just to talk about, it's such an amazing gift that the Bear Rope family has given, so that we can talk about it. All the artifacts that are here in Glenbow are also specific stories to each one. So when we're looking at the artifacts, to us it's hard to explain that to us they're still alive, because to us everything has a spirit. And one of the main things that I focus on is that we are not above creation, that we're just a part of creation.